Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Still Curtain Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Jaggi, editor of Still Curtain, and joining me, as always, is Still Curtain contributor Shayne Kubas. Shayne, Steelers players are arriving at Steelers camp. I'm wrapping that up as we speak. We'll talk about some of the arrivals today, anything interesting that we've noted here. We'll talk about Jalen Ramsey cracking the top 100 list. Last time when we recorded our podcast, the TJ Watt extension happened afterwards. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And then Shayne and I are going to give our Steelers 53-man roster predictions, our pre-camp predictions, if you will. And we'll kind of gauge this later on to see how accurate we were. And I'm dealing with a cold here, so you'll have to forgive me. Sound a little nasally today. All right, Shayne, let's kick this off with the Steelers players' arrival. It's like fans get excited for it. Players are back. It's starting to feel like camp again. We do this every year. Some of this stuff is kind of repeated, like TJ Watt showing up to camp with a tower fan and a couple of cardboard boxes and a suitcase. Like, it doesn't matter how much money the guy makes. He's still old school that way.
Yeah, which, like, part of me is like, I like it, but also it's like, man, kind of like what JJ said whenever he got the deal, is like, you better never ask me to pull my wallet out ever again. Like, it kind of feels like, all right, man, like you can probably upgrade the camp setup if you want at this point. I don't think anybody's going to be mad at you if you have something a little bit nicer. But hey, if that's what he wants to do, yeah. The other thing too to think about is, like, a lot of these guys, like, it feels like for some of them are very, very much motivated by money. I think TJ wanted the respect that comes with the money more so than the actual money. And you can kind of look at the way he handled his last deal, where it's like, forget about it. I'm walking in, telling him I'm signing it, I'm going out to camp. Like, I don't know how much the money itself is necessarily a huge factor. I think it's the respect that comes with it for him. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think that we hit on this last time too, but just the general feel overall at Steelers training camp, the history behind it, being there in Latrobe at St. Vincent College. TJ Watt has spoken on it before and how he likes that tradition. It's not for everybody. It's kind of, compared to what these guys are used to, it's roughing it. It's going into getting a roommate in a college dorm room in a twin bed. And so,
yeah, a lot of these guys haven't done it in a long time. Some of them just had it, recently.
Yeah. Some of them fresh out of college. So Derek Harmon arriving there. We got to see a lot of players come in. The media is obviously dropping tweets of photos, videos, and quotes from players here. Anything else that struck you? Robert Woods was swarmed when he showed up, and he talked about Jalen Ramsey a little bit in terms of his time together with him in LA. And then Ramsey's just versatility overall kind of gave him that glowing endorsement to say, this guy can play safety if you need him to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know Jalen can do that. I think he has the build for it. I think even coming out in the draft, like, I think most people viewed him as an outside corner, but there were some people like, hey, could he just be like this do-it-all, like, nickel safety? And I think that's what he's going to ultimately become for this team, especially at his age, where he's going to be the nickel, I think, pretty confidently. Well, Jalen himself kind of made it a little bit like, I'm just going to play defense. Like, I don't think they know for sure yet, but I'd be surprised if he's anything more than mostly a nickel, maybe some outside corner as well. And then, hey, again, safety at some point. If one of these safeties just isn't cutting it, which it would be most likely Juan Thornhill, but we'll get into that later, maybe he does move back to safety to kind of just make the defense work. So we'll see.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, when Ramsey arrived and he spoke to the media, he was kind of, I mean, he didn't, it seemed like he was holding something back. He said, I'm not getting paid when I'm getting paid to not affect the game and be in certain spots. I don't know if that was like a shot at saying, like, I don't want to play safety, play me at corner. I'm going to be more effective there. But we'll see what the Steelers have in mind. I think that everybody has speculated since the trade that he could play a lot of slot, especially when the Steelers are in nickel or dime packages and base. We would expect him to be the starting outside corner opposite Joey Porter. I would think that he is the better option than a 34-year-old Darius Slay at this point. The Steelers did pay Slay, though, that 1 year, $10 million contract. But Ramsey's not going off the field. He's going to be either at safety, slot corner, or boundary. It's going to be one of the three. And my early prediction, Shayne, is that he would start on the boundary, kick inside to the slot. That's still my preference. I still think that that's where he impacts the game most. So it's a three-step drop and out type of NFL right now. There's not a lot of deep passing. He's more impactful there. I don't want to see him be a full-time safety. I think if the Steelers did that, then what are you doing the Minka trade for to begin with?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think if he sticks around for a couple of years, that could be eventually his role where he does kind of become more of a true safety. But even then, I still think the slot's probably more likely his long-term home in terms of what he does most of the
Mhm.
time. I do agree that in base defense, I think he should be the second corner. I do think he should play opposite Joey. I think Darius would be better off in a situation where he's technically the third corner, where he's not the third corner in the sense that he's going to be the slot corner, but he's the third corner in the game if they are in nickels when he's going to play outside. He is older, obviously, even older than Ramsey. He's a guy that played well last year, but how much longer can you ask him to do that? Him playing less snaps is probably overall better for him in the defense. So that way, the snaps we do get out of him are maybe a little bit better than they would be if he had to play 1,000 snaps or whatever.
All right, Shayne. In nothing really else major happening.
Nothing
Nick
major,
Herbig,
yeah.
Alex Highsmith, they both spoke on TJ Watt's contract, basically said that he's worth every penny.
Right, of course.
And what else are they going to say? Obviously, I mean, this is the guy that they're learning from as well. And,
Yeah.
and they got a good edge room for sure. Nothing else really struck me as big
Super
news of
noteworthy.
guys rolling in here. Yeah. There really wasn't a lot going on. So I do want to touch on this. And we didn't even have this in the notes because it happened so recently, but Adam Schefter reports Dolphins cornerback Artie Burns, former Steelers first-round pick in 2016, left injured with a knee and is on crutches, feared to have a torn ACL. And so it stinks for Burns, who is trying to kind of make it in this league still, being that gunner and that reserve cornerback.
And honestly, as much as obviously you won't see me saying that he wasn't a bad pick, he was, right? But he's still hanging around the NFL all these years later.
He is.
There's an element of respect you have to give a guy for that. But the other thing is, to be honest with you, with the way the Dolphins corner room was looking, it wasn't impossible that he was going to play for this defense. It definitely was not outside the realm of possibility that he could have gotten snaps here. And so obviously if he did tear his ACL, it's really, sucks to see any player go down before camp even really starts, right? So definitely hoping the best for him.
Yeah, Shayne, from one former high Steelers draft pick to another, George Pickens had his first practice at Dallas Cowboys training camp yesterday. Made some nice plays, turned some heads, had a big reception. I know you wrote about, but he also fumbled at the end of the play there.
He did. Yeah.
Lost focus a little bit. But it's really his comments to the media that over the last 3 years, this is what's got him in trouble. And already he's kind of backhanding the Steelers a little bit when he spoke to Dallas's media yesterday after practice. He said, "I'm definitely excited to run better plays." And that felt like a not so subtle jab at Matt Canada, Arthur Smith now. I mean, we're used to this with Pickens. Cowboys fans, though, they're only getting a taste of what's to come.
Yeah, it's really interesting because especially before last year. Now, I'm also still not the biggest Arthur Smith guy in the world, so even still last year, but it's kind of hard to say that he's probably wrong, unfortunately. It's one of those situations where it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right? If he would have just said, "Hey, I'm excited to be an offense that I think is going to be more, diverse or going to be more explosive or whatever," that would be one, a little less on the nose as far as criticism, but more so just talking about your offense, right? Being "I'm excited about my offense I'm in now." Him saying better plays is just, you're going to get some people mad about that. And it's fine to be mad about it. I think it's fair, but also it's he could have said almost the same thing and still gotten away with it. But that's the problem with him, is he hasn't been able to kind of toe that line of how do I talk to the media in a way that isn't going to get me kind of in hot water with either my teammates or people around the league. That's kind of why there wasn't as much interest in him as maybe people thought there would be. So that's kind of where we're at with him still.
And Shayne, this is kind of mild to some of the things that he's done.
It's not the worst thing in the world.
Even walking away from the media before after kind of passing the blame back to the media. And it was a question if whether or not Pickens and Wilson were on the same page, and there was kind of a back and forth there, and then just walked away. And so you'll probably see some of that from him this year with Cowboys media. We know that media is unforgiving as well. So it's going to be interesting for sure. But we are one day into Cowboys practice, and we're already hearing about George Pickens. I'm sure there's going to be more to come. Russell Wilson was given the starting job, according to Brian Dable, head coach of the New York
Yeah.
Giants today. Not really surprising. Also, for what it's worth, Jackson Dart, first-round pick of the Giants, threw a pick six on his first play at Giants camp. So
what better
if
way
you're
to
wondering
start
if
it
we
off?
missed out, at least that's one good sign for now. But, I mean, obviously that can change drastically.
Yeah. So we'll see.
All right, Shayne, let's move on and let's talk about Jalen Ramsey again for a second here and his spot on the NFL's top 100 players list. Now, you and I talked about this pretty in depth last week when it came to Patrick Queen and how we kind of disagreed that he should have been on the list at all after the season that he had just had. I know that he's a Pro Bowl linebacker and led the team in tackles, but the performance, when you go back and watch it, when you watch the All-22, it wasn't what you wanted it to be. And so these are voted on by the players, obviously. They had a lot of respect for Patrick Queen. They apparently have a lot of respect for Jalen Ramsey as well, who lands number 66 on the top 100 players list, which is higher than, and I've got this, pull it up here as well. It's higher than players like Malik Neighbors, Jordan Love, Jordan Mailata, the left tackle for the Eagles. I mean, that's pretty high praise at this stage of his career. He turns 31 in October, just like TJ Watt, not coming off of his best season. I thought he was respectable with the Dolphins last year, playing a lot of slot corner in addition to boundary. What do you make of this number 66 ranking, Shayne? And do you buy that Jalen Ramsey is still a top 65, 70 player in the NFL entering 2025?
I think he's still capable of being it. I think the Dolphins, obviously, last year were a bit of a mess, and I still think he played pretty well, despite that, for the most part. I would say that of the three Steelers we've gotten, this is the most kind of appropriate rating that they've given them, in the sense that Jalen could be worse than this, and I think it's very easy to argue that he's not the player that he was, and therefore maybe not a top 75-ish or so player. But I think the avenue for him to be one is there. And I think last year, if you factor in kind of everything going on with the Dolphins, it's easier to excuse not quite his best season than it would be, other places. So this one's the most appropriate so far. We know Cam should have been higher. We know that Queen should have probably been somewhere in the 200s somewhere. So we kind of, at this point, I would say it's the best ranking we've gotten, despite it still not being maybe exactly right. So.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with you. I think the last two have been a little bit too rich. I think that if Ramsey were to make the list off the season he just had, he should probably be closer to the 80 range, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Drop him down.
Patrick Queen at 75, I think, should have been left off the list. There's just too many good players in this league. And we talked about how he's probably not even the best linebacker on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. So. We're actually obviously talking about off-ball linebackers. I use the terminology off-ball linebacker and edge rushers.
As you should.
We got to get up to date with that. It's just, that's a whole new conversation. And then Cam Hayward is the third player on the Steelers who has made the list so far. They're reverse ranking these. They've only got to 65 through 70 was the most recent ranking they had. 71. Whatever that was, 61 to 71 is the most recent rankings. We expect to see TJ Watt on there. I don't know if we'll see anybody else, possibly DK Metcalf, but Cam Hayward was 83, and that's too low, I think, after the season he just had.
Yeah, that's still the one where it's like, now I will say, I don't know if, I think it was PFSN is the one who did the other top 100 list that we've seen. I'm not sure if I'd rank him second in the league like they did, as much as I appreciate the shout out. But I think he should be in the middle of those two, like maybe directly in the middle of those two, right? So that's definitely my biggest gripe so far as the Steelers go with that list. So.
All right, let's move on, Shayne. And I really briefly, I want to talk about the Steelers' new legacy throwback jerseys because, boy, when these were released and everybody was really hyped to see, all right, what do they have going on here? We knew this was going to be some sort of throwback here. We knew that the yellow helmets were going to be involved based on the rumors, reports that were out there. We didn't know that we were going to get the atrocity that we just we saw unfold with the jersey release. And if you didn't catch it, it's all over X. It's all over social media. It's on stillcurtain.com. So go check that out. We wrote a few articles about it. They're not the most aesthetically pleasing jerseys, if you will, with the tan pants, the vertical black stripes. And Shayne, for what it's worth, and I found this interesting, somebody asked Grok, the AI platform for X, if they were worse than the Bumblebee jerseys or which one was better between the two. And Grok preferred the Bumblebee jerseys. And so that tells you a little bit about the monstrosity that was just released here. Now, if you like him, that's good for you. Go out and purchase one. It's got a lot going on with it, and I think that they could have done with something cleaner than that. Yellow helmets with like all white block numbers, like the 70s, like that would have been cool.
Yeah, let's just say I'm probably not going to be purchasing one of these jerseys. Probably will not be adding it to the collection. I'm hoping to get a little bit bigger soon, but no, it's not great. It's not really that great to look at. I think the pants is the biggest problem. Let's not do tan pants, and let's just not do that. Like we
it's
can't.
Party on the top and business on the bottom.
It really is. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, also again, vertical stripes. Not a big fan of that generally. Like, just not a huge fan. In overall, like, could it be worse? I guess probably, but I kind of feel like the bumblebees are better. Like, they're at least kind of funny. This isn't really funny to me. This is just kind of sad to look at in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not thrilled to be watching this team wear these when they will, which I believe is the Vikings game or the Packers game.
Packers game.
So it's gonna be interesting to say the least. We'll see how
it's going to be a mad rush of yellow helmets is what it's going to be.
It's going to be.
It's like, all right, you chose a good time to pull those out. We get what they were going for there. They wanted the history with it. The original 1933, the very first Steelers team had jerseys similar to that. So it was a play on those. Missed the mark a little bit, I think, but let us know what you think down in the comment section below. All right, Shayne. Oh, and on that note, if you have any other questions, drop them in the chat for Shayne and I. We would love to get those to those for you. Shayne, let's talk about TJ Watt's extension for just a minute here. The numbers didn't surprise me. They shouldn't have surprised you either if you've been paying attention to what's going on at the position. So 3 edge rushers reset the market, one on top of each other this offseason. Danielle Hunter, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and then TJ Watt comes in with numbers north of what Myles Garrett had in terms of per year and in terms of guarantees. 108 million fully guaranteed. That crushes Garrett's number of 88.8 fully guaranteed. Now, Garrett has more total guarantees of the fully guaranteed. Watt is in Watt's favor
more.
And so it's 41 per year, 3 years, 123 million. It's very expensive. Like we've seen this market and the salary cap go up exponentially over the last few years. Before this, and when back in 2021, when Watt came in just before week 1, signed his contract, he made $28 million a year, and that was huge money back then. That was record-setting money back then. It just shows you how quickly the cap is going up. Shayne, we knew what this was going to come in at. Would you have done this 10 times over again if you're the Steelers? Like, what are your other options here? Because are you really going to trade Watt for a second and a third round pick or whatever you can get out of him? I don't think you can get a first even. Not probably with the age, the contract that he's going to bring on, the guaranteed money and all that. It was pretty much the way that I thought it would be.
Yeah, this is almost exactly the contract that I said, if you're going to do this, which I think they had to do, that you wanted it to be. You wanted it to be a 3-year deal because then, one, you don't have a ton of future money tied up in this deal. You have flexibility with it if you want to add years to it, if he is still playing well near the end of it or something like that. If you want to move some money around, it's a lot easier to do that on a deal that isn't quite as long, especially with as many guarantees past that 3rd year. That's the big thing. In general, I think this is how it needed to be structured if you're going to do it. They also set themselves up in a way where they had to, right? Like they're not prepared to blow this up. They're not truly rebuilding the team. They are in a lot of ways retooling it. Now they're setting themselves up to potentially have to make a decision about whether they're going to rebuild the team, like if they can't get the quarterback in place long term, if they can't do any of those things. But this deal keeps him happy, keeps him on the team while they're still trying to compete. And it doesn't completely hamstring them if they do have to move off of it at some point, either because it ages poorly or because Watt just isn't getting it done, right? So I think it's fine. I think it's how it needed to be if it was going to get done. But I do understand people who are a little bit skeptical about paying him this much money, and it was 30. So it's kind of a twofold thing there.
Yeah, this was expected. I would have put a very small % chance on Watt getting moved and not playing out most of his career with the Steelers. Like, I think that is the goal all along. We know with this team, when they get a star player like that, they want to make sure he's taken care of. In terms of the money, Shayne, it's like, I think that you really had to do this based on the direction that you've
Exactly.
chosen to go. I mean, you signed a 41-year-old quarterback. You signed a 34-year-old corner in Darius Slay. You traded for a cornerback who turns 31 early in this season. Like Cameron Hayward's 36 years old. It would have been so counterintuitive to trade Watt after the moves that you've made to try to win now. And so they're going to try to win now. I think that the one thing that we've touched on before that's still positive is the Steelers were able to do all the things that they did this offseason, which wasn't anything mind-boggling. They traded out for DK Metcalf. They made a couple blockbuster trades that we obviously didn't see coming, but they're able to do that while hanging on to almost all of their draft capital for 2026, which they maybe have the best of both worlds in a way. Maybe they could have gone even more in for now, but at least they're not jeopardizing their chances for the future. And I don't think this contract is going to either. And honestly, Shayne, this is something that we could look at 2 years from now and say, Watt's deal actually doesn't look that bad. If he's still playing at anywhere near a Pro Bowl level by that point, it's like, all right, I mean, we can get behind this at least. It's not going to look like just wasted money because the cap goes up so quickly. And it's only a matter of time before Micah Parsons is going to fly over him and Aiden Hutchinson is going to fly over him. It's interesting, Shayne, and I should note this too. Trey Hendrickson left town after TJ Watt got his deal. It's like
quite literally got in the car and drove away. Like, it's
we're too far. Like I feel like that had to have had something to do with it when Watt's extension was announced. Like, we are not in the vicinity with the Bengals.
If you look at Hendrickson, though, like realistically, I know there's a huge difference between them, especially in the running game, right? Mm-hmm. But he's outproduced Watt from a statistical standpoint in terms of pass rush production over the past 2 years. They're about the same age. Why couldn't he look at them and be like, hey, I know I'm not quite the run defender, but like, why am I not getting at least in the mid-30s on a 3 or 4 year deal with a lot of that guaranteed? And the Bengals probably told him, well, because we don't want to do that and kick rocks, basically, which is what their strategy is for a lot of things. And it's just, I do think it had at least something to do with it. I think it probably just reinforced in his mind, like, what am I doing here? Like, what is going on with this? Like, how am I not getting even like 75% of that contract? Like, I'm at least that worth that much. And the Bengals just don't seem to think so. So I do think it had some amount of tension there with that too.
And Shayne, he's got such an incredible case to be made. He's a few months younger than Watt.
Yeah.
He's had 17 and a half sacks in back-to-back seasons, led the NFL in sacks last year. A high pressure rate the last 2 years, was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting last season. He's one of the only respectable players on the Bengals defense. And how frustrating would it be to be a Bengals fan right now, knowing that your first round pick, Shamar Stewart's not showing up to camp, and your all-pro edge rusher just left town? It's like, they can't catch a break. Like, even with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that I think are going to be Hall of Fame level offensive talents, they can't catch a break. And I feel bad for them in a sense, but it's like, man, you've got to, you got to catch up. And I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know where the contract talks are. We don't have a lot of information on that. But the Bengals, if you want to keep your best players around, you have to pay market value. I don't know why you think you're just going to get them at a discounted rate. I think the guaranteed money is a huge holdup there. Like, they're not willing to guarantee past the first year. It's like, why would you not? If other teams are,
especially
follow suit.
I don't know. That's a whole other conversation for sure. But like, again, the other thing with the TJ Watt deal is you look at the numbers, right? Like the $41 million a year. Everyone's like, oh, it's the most expensive player ever. That's not a quarterback. If you think about it, there's two ways I like to think about it that kind of makes it a little bit easier to swallow. One, the percentage of the cap he takes up is not really different from his last deal, because again, the cap does keep going up. Like in 2 years, when we're in the meat of this deal, when we're like 2 years into the extension, it's not even going to be that bad probably from a cap percentage standpoint. The other thing I think about is he's basically getting Daniel Jones money. Like he's pretty much getting paid what Daniel Jones did, which like, I don't know.
On the Giants, and that was like 3 years ago.
Exactly, it was like 3 years ago. So like
2 years ago,
I'm kind of okay with that. Like it just is what it is. I think that it's obviously a big deal because it's the biggest deal, literally, for a non-quarterback. But I don't think it's as impactful in a negative way, potentially, as some people think it could be. So that's the hope, at least.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it was something, whether you like the contract or not, I think it was something that had to get done because, again, you can always go back to what is the alternative here. I can let him play out his contract and walk. You would get, you're going to get a 3rd round pick for him, a compensatory 3rd round pick. He's worth well more than that. I can trade him now for a second and a third round pick, which is more draft capital, but I don't get to use him this year in a year where you're trying to win.
You would almost have to get at least really good player from someone back as part of the deal, in which case you're not going to get the draft capital then. Like you'd almost have to swap him out for an edge defender that you think can at least be a good complement to what else you have on the defensive line. And that's just probably not going to happen. Like if a team has a good young edge, they probably don't want to swap him out for a player, even though TJ is as good as he is, for a player they're not going to have as long. Right. So I think that's the only way it could have sort of made sense. And that just wasn't going to happen.
All right, Shayne, I think we've talked about the Watt extension enough. If you are a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers and would like to support the Steel Curtain podcast, please consider subscribing to the Steel Curtain podcast on YouTube. We appreciate all of your support. We will be bringing you Steelers camp coverage over the next several weeks here. So make sure you join us on steelcurtain.com too. I think we posted 14 articles this morning already. We have fresh content always coming out over there. All right, Shayne, let's get to our Steelers training camp 53-man roster predictions. We are making this prediction during this recording right before the first practice kicks off tomorrow. And so this is before we get to see anybody take the field. We could be wildly off on some of these things, but typically we have a pretty good feel for how this is going to go. We've done this for years now. And I think, Shayne, by the end of training camp, by the end of roster cut downs on that big roster cut down day, I think that we're probably only going to be 2, maybe 3 players off, maybe 4. We'll see how this goes. And some of this is obviously hinging on players that get injured, signings that Steelers make. But based on the 90-man roster that's available to us right now, you and I have made our pre-camp 53-man roster predictions. Shayne, we're going to go position by position here. And let's start right with quarterback. And I've got 3, as they always have. And that is Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and 6th-round rookie pick Will Howard. That means that Skylar Thompson is missing the cut and is going to the practice squad.
I have the same. So I do think that's going to be the case. And there's a lot of reasons, right? We know Aaron and Mason are going to be the 1 and 2. You can debate about whether Will Howard or Skylar Thompson could be the better third quarterback. I think that the biggest reason here is that if they put Howard on the practice squad, I don't think he stays on it. I think a team poaches him. I think that's a big factor to consider too. Like even if it's pretty close, you give the edge to the more recent pick, the guy that has more upside. I think Thompson ends up on the practice squad where he should be at this point in his career, and they go with those 3.
Yeah, 100%. And you're talking about a guy who has 6th-round rookie contract money. Like the price is right. You get him on a 4-year deal. He's the guy that you're banking on to be something for you. And as a third emergency quarterback, it's only a break glass in case of emergency situation. He's probably not going to have to see the field at all, but it's more advantageous to keep Will Howard around. He's the draft pick. He's the younger guy. He's the guy that theoretically should be better than Skylar Thompson. And if you've watched Skylar Thompson in Miami, there's not a lot of tools to work with. He was already an old prospect when he was drafted. He is more like a scout team quarterback. He is more like a guy that probably should be on a practice squad. And so these are the 3 that I have. We are synced up on that, Shayne. Give us your running backs that you have making the 53-man roster.
So with running back, I'm going to go with 3 like they tend to do. And I think it's pretty clear the direction this is going. We know who the top 2 for sure are going to be with Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson, 3rd-round pick. And then Kenneth Gainwell, I think, is pretty clearly the 3rd back here. I think he's got special teams value, obviously can return kicks for you, and he's a good receiving back out of the backfield. So kind of a backup for Jaylen Warren's 3rd down skill set at least, right? I don't think the other guys are going to make the roster because I think they do only keep 3. If they were to keep extra ones, that's when you start getting into interesting territory, but I don't think that they do ultimately.
Shayne, I've got the same 3 as you, and I think that it's shocking that Cordarrelle Patterson is still here. Like I thought that he would have been a cut to save money. So I don't think that the 3rd spot is guaranteed, but I'm definitely leaning Gainwell. He was the signing this offseason. Warren and Caleb Johnson are for sure roster locks, and barring an injury there, I feel pretty confident saying that those will be the 3. I would be surprised if they kept 4 because, again, you can always bring up somebody else in the event of injuries. Right. And from what we've known from the Steelers these past several years, it's been Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren getting all the touches, almost all the touches. Cordarrelle Patterson got a handful last year. Before that, it was like no other Steelers running back barely touched the football.
I
So I
think the
think
year before, literally no other running back touched the football the year
I
before.
think you're
yeah.
right. I think it might have been like Connor Hayward got a touch or something that way.
But
But
like, and then you count as like, is he a
yeah,
tight end? Is he
exactly. But it just shows you how much they're going to lean heavily. And that, again, Matt Canada, different offense, if you will. But I think they're going to lean so heavily on Warren and Johnson. There is no need to keep a fourth running back around. I think those are the three. All right, Shayne, wide receivers. And this is where we might start to get a little bit different here. I've got DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods is the kind of that veteran presence there, Ben Skoranek. I'm only keeping 5, and I'm going to get to a different spot later. Are you going with 6 wide receivers here?
I am going with 5 as well, the same 5 that you did. And I think it's mostly because, again, this team seems to care a lot more about another position on offense in the passing game than they do the receiver position. Not that I can blame them that much, considering the difference in talent between the two spots. So for now, I am going to 5 as well. Again, the same 5. Skoranek is that special teamer blocker type that you could throw out there to do some stuff. And then the other 4 are going to have to jockey for position, well, the 3 behind DK Metcalf to kind of decide who's going to be that number 2 receiver ultimately.
Agreed, Shayne. And they made one blockbuster move, trading for DK Metcalf this offseason. They're not going to do anything to that magnitude, but I would not be shocked at all if they bring in another receiver, maybe one that gets let go early, maybe a trade. Maybe. I've talked several times about like the Green Bay Packers are loaded at wide receiver. They're willing to move on from a Romeo Dobbs, a Dontavian Wicks, like maybe someone like that comes over and tries to fight for the wide receiver 2 or 3 in Pittsburgh. But I don't think it's going to be anything major if they do. And so for now, based on the roster outlook, the fact that they are hurting for talent outside of Metcalf at wide receiver and they're deeper in other positions, I'm going with 5. And so we are still 100% the same roster heading into the tight end position. Shayne, who do you have here for the Steelers? How many tight ends do you have?
I have 4. And technically, one of them is more of a fullback, so we'll get into that. I do think it's possible that they keep a guy that's for that role. Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington are going to be the 3 like main tight ends, of course. There's going to be 3 guys who are locks for the roster. And then I think DJ Thomas Jones might make this team as a fullback. I really do. I think his skill set to kind of be that type of player. I think Arthur Smith wants a guy like that. And I think as much as Connor Hayward is kind of a fullback tight end hybrid, I don't think he's quite the athlete that DJ Thomas Jones is. He tested pretty well. And I think he just doesn't have the same size, right? I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And this does mean that I don't have Connor making it. To be honest, I just don't. I did like what he showed kind of early in his career, but to me, it kind of just feels like his time might be up at this team.
I like your prediction there. And I think that you're talking about a versatile player there who can play some tight end, play some fullback. I've got the same top 3, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington. Number 4, I've got Connor Hayward still, because as long as Cam
could totally be the case.
I hate to chalk it up to that. This is nothing against Hayward. I think that Hayward is a quality special team.
He's a rosterable player. He is.
Yeah, he's a low end rosterable player. But if the battle is close, and I would expect it to be close, probably, I think that they're going to go with a bit of nepotism here and keep the brother of the All-Pro. And so we'll see what happens. So we are 1 player apart so far in these predictions. Let's get to the offensive line. Shayne, I can go first here. I've got 9 total offensive linemen, which isn't uncharacteristic of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, you're starting 5 from left to right: Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu. The Steelers are going to be banking on those unproven offensive tackles this year to really step up. I think, I can't remember who had the article just recently, that was the biggest weakness and the biggest question mark on the team. They've got to prove that they are first round worthy. As backups, Shayne, I have Calvin Anderson as the backup swing tackle, Spencer Anderson as a backup guard, Ryan McCollum as a backup center. And I went with Max Sharping as another backup interior offensive lineman who can kind of do a little bit of everything.
So very similar list. My only difference is I have 9 as well. I decided, because I'm not super comfortable with the idea of Calvin Anderson being the only true backup tackle, I kept Dylan Cook opposed to Sharping. I think that could be in the cards. Now, Sharping is probably more of the likely candidate because of the ability to play multiple spots in the interior. But I do think having two tackles that are viable potentially could be more important to this team, considering the fact that they do have questions at the tackle spots until proven otherwise. So that's my only difference with you there.
Yeah, this depth is a lot scarier than it was last year. And
Yeah.
Shane and I broke this down on last week's episode. If you want to check out more detail about each of these positions, go check out that show because we talked about that for a little while as well. Let's move over to defense, Shane. So we're what, 2 players apart now?
2 players, yeah, so far.
All right. Heading to the defense, I've got 6 interior defensive linemen.
Me too.
Those are Cameron Hayward, first round pick Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, who's still going to be playing nose tackle, which you love. Daniel Kwale, who was signed by the Patriots, started for them last year. Y.A. Black, I have making the roster as the Steelers' 5th round pick. And my last one, Shane, I went with Logan Lee. There is like a 4-way battle for that last spot, I think, between Loudermilk, whatever the heck you want to call Leal, that I think the Steelers have failed and he's failed them. Yeah. Dean Lowry, like I'm going with the younger guy who does have some experience playing a little bit of nose tackle as well as the Steelers base 3-4 defensive end. So I'm going Logan Lee with that last spot.
So this was a spot I thought we would differ, but we are exactly the same in the interior defensive line. So I do have Logan Lee as my last guy. The other guys I think are locks. Lee's the one that's certainly not, but I do think that he brings more potential to the table than any of the guys left, in that group, like you said. Dean Lowry's a veteran. I think it's possible he gets that spot if they don't see enough from Lee. But I think, again, Loudermilk, at some point, like, we got to stop with this, right? Like, it's just, we can't keep doing this with him as much as they would like him to turn into something. And then at the end of the day, like I said, DeMarvin Leal, would have loved to see him work out, had the talent, but I just don't think he's got it, unfortunately. So I go Logan Lee. If it's not, my guess would be it would actually be Lowry who would get that spot if Lee's not ready to go.
Yeah, and what does age matter at this point anyway? It's like you're trying to
win this
now.
Team.
Loudermilk, Shane, like, have you ever seen a guy like not improve or improve as little as Loudermilk has over like a 4-year span? And Kevin Colbert traded a future 5th round pick to go up and get him back in the 2021 draft, I believe. So it's just, I'm glad to have our hands washed of that Kevin Colbert situation there in Pittsburgh. I wrote about that just recently and how it's almost no players remaining from the Kevin Colbert era. It's almost entirely new roster outside of some of the kind of guys that have been grandfathered in for a while. Alex Highsmith was one of his only good picks in the last 5 years since from 2018, 2022. That's a whole different conversation. But that's why there's been so much roster turnover. And Loudermilk is just another example of that. Leal is an example of that, a guy that they just didn't know what to do with. So we have them both missing the roster this year. All right, Shane, let's talk about the edge rushers here. I think this one is pretty chalk, maybe the most chalk of any position. We've got, and I'm saying we, like speaking for you as if you're already going to have the same 4. Well, they only keep 4 ever, and if they keep 5, I would be surprised by that.
Yeah,
I've been asking them to do that for a while because I think that it would spell that of breaks, spell TJ Watt, make him fresh down the stretch, but they don't do it. So I've got TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. Those are all roster locks. In number 4 spot is Jack Sawyer. He's the 4th round pick. He was the 75th overall player on Marcus Mosier's NFL Draft Expert Consensus Board. The Steelers got him at 135. Like they got value on him, at least against the consensus board. He's a guy that is got that Ohio State pedigree. Like I'd be really surprised if anybody sneaks in there. Even if he has just an average camp, I'd be surprised if somebody else takes that spot because there's very little competition there.
Yeah, this is the 4. I mean, unless they want to try to say DeMarvin Leal's an edge rusher again and stick him in there as if it which they're not, I don't think at this point. But if they did, that's the only way it would technically be 5. But at that point, you have really just 7 interior defensive linemen, 1 moonlighting as an edge. But yeah, these are the 4. I think Sawyer, at the end of the day, I just personally think he lacks NFL tools, but he is a hard worker. He's going to be a high effort player, which there's nothing the Steelers like more than a high effort player on the defensive line. So I can't really say that he doesn't fit, right? Like, at the end of the day, no matter how you feel about him, he certainly fits what they're looking for. So, hopefully he can be somewhat of an impact when he's out there. I don't think he's going to play too much, obviously, as the 4th edge for this team. Although most teams should play their 4th edge more than we do, but that's neither here nor there. I do think this is the 4 pretty comfortably.
Agreed. And Steelers don't cut 4th-round picks often
No,
anyway, and so
no.
the utter lack of depth behind Sawyer shows that I would almost call him a roster lock, maybe even more so than what Will Howard is. Like, that's how safe
Yeah,
I feel about his
probably
job at
realistically.
this point in time, and we'll see what happens. Off-ball linebackers, Shane. I've got 5 of these: Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson. Those are the top 2. I think Malik Harrison's a roster lock based on the money the Steelers paid him this offseason. Cole Holcomb, even coming off of that big knee injury, hasn't played since the middle of the 2023 season. He looked like he was moving really well during OTAs, and so I'm putting him on the roster. And I'm also putting 6th-round rookie, or 7th-round rookie, Carson Bruner on the roster as well. I think Bruner replaces Mark Robinson this year.
I have also the same 5. This is kind of, to me, another position where, unless Holcomb really doesn't look the same and like they think they need to cut bait on him, this is also a position where I think this is pretty cut and dry at this point for this roster. Like, as much as Robinson has shown flashes, especially on special teams, Bruner was brought in for a reason. I think he's a better athlete. I think he's a more natural, actual linebacker. So even though he's going to be a special teamer right away, I think he has more potential to play on this defense at some point and would be a better depth linebacker than what Robinson's shown to be. So I think that he's going to make the team for sure for that reason. And then the other 4, again, are locks outside of like a Holcomb, just isn't the same guy type of situation.
All right, Shane, where I skimped at wide receiver is where I made up for at cornerback. Are
Same
we like-minded there as well?
We
okay.
are.
So the Steelers suddenly, and this hardly ever happens with this team, they find themselves with a flood of cornerback depth. Now, there's still going to be some guys that are missing out here. But Shane, why don't you go first, and then I will go, and I'll give you my reasoning.
Right. So we have the top 3 guys are very clear, right? Especially after the Ramsey trade. You have Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay. Those are going to be the 3 primary corners for this team on, like, especially base and nickel looks. Then Corey Trice, I think, has earned, outside of the injury questions, earned that 4th spot. It's kind of that dime / like just 3rd outside corner type of guy. Brandon Echols, they paid a decent amount of money. I think that they like him. I think they want him to be kind of that versatile piece, so he makes the team for me. And then it was kind of between Beanie Bishop and Dante Kent for me at that point. And I think I give the edge to Bishop off experience and the fact that he at least did show enough last year where, and if they didn't get Ramsey, I think he'd be in contention to start at the nickel again. So I think he's the primary backup nickel in this defense then.
Okay, Shane, so we do differ here, and I've got 7 cornerbacks.
I have 7. Okay.
7 cornerbacks making the roster for the Steelers, and let me tell you why. Those guys are Ramsey, Porter, and Slay, Beanie Bishop, Corey Trice, which Bishop I don't feel safe about, but
yeah,
I mean, Trice, if he's healthy, better make the roster because he's versatile. Yeah. He can play outside. He can play slot. He can play a little bit of safety as well. Back in his days of Purdue, I don't know if they're going to try him there or not. But because of the versatility at safety with Ramsey, with Trice, they've got guys that can play there in a pinch at least. So that's where I skimped a little bit as well. And then I have Brandon Echols making it. He signed a 2-year deal. I'm not a big Brandon Echols fan from what I watched of his New York Jets tape. But I think when you sign a 2-year contract, you're pretty secure in making that spot. And I even added a 7th guy, Shane, and that is James Pierre, strictly for special teams purposes, where you are going to use him as a gunner. And I think that he's going to get a hat most game days because of his ability as a gunner.
That's fair. I think it's possible that they keep 10 it would be for me 11 DBs, but one of them is an extra corner instead of an extra safety. So that's where we're going to differ. And I, granted, there's a reason I differ on that a little bit, and we'll get into that when we get to safeties in a second. But I do get the James Pierre situation because he keeps showing up on this team because of special teams, and there's a reason for that. So.
Yeah, and when I look at I think this is the most interesting position, by the way, of all the positional battles, because even though we know who the top 3 guys are, I think it's really crowded after that. And I don't know, are the Steelers going to prefer an extra nickel cornerback like Beanie Bishop? Are they going to prefer the guy with special teams ace like James Pierre? Are they going to prefer the do-it-all avatar cornerback in Trice who just can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
I think that there's an avenue that Trice doesn't make the roster. I'd be super disappointed if that happens.
But I'd be shocked unless it's injury related again, like where he gets hurt and they're like, we're done with it, that type of thing.
And for what it's worth, I believe that Trice absolutely should be the dime backer for this team this year. Like his coverage chops and tackling ability were so good last year when he was healthy. So those are my 7 there. Now let's move on to safeties, Shayne. I've got 4 safeties making the roster. They are Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, Miles Killebrew, and Sebastian Castro. Castro becomes my only UDFA to make the Steelers roster this year. What do you have?
I have the same top 4, but I have 5, and I have a caveat here. I think the 5th safety, or more likely the 3rd safety, is not on this team yet. I think that this is where they are going to make a move at some point. I don't think they trust the safety depth going into training camp, going into the season where it's at. You hope that Castro could be the 3rd safety, ideally as an undrafted free agent, because I think he has the talent to do so and the instincts. But it's an undrafted free agent. I don't know if they want to bank on that in year 1 when they're trying to make this team as good as it possibly can be. If you can add a safety that maybe doesn't have to start, but at least has starting experience or has the potential to compete with a Juan Thornhill to have that role, that would be the most ideal thing. So I'm hoping, and kind of in this case, predicting that does happen where they add a safety at some point here shortly.
Yeah, Shayne, and now that Minka is gone, there's an argument to be made that this is maybe the weakest positional group. I think Elliott had a great season. Killebrew is a awesome special teams player. He's not a guy you want starting on defense.
He's really a linebacker.
He truly is. And Juan Thornhill, these last 2 seasons, like it's been really rough for him. And so that's the position I would look today. He had an interesting comment too, or teams don't throw at him. I mean, there's stats that tell otherwise, and so that's, you can talk it. You got to make sure you back it up though, still too. So those are my 4 safeties. You went with 5 there. And then the specialist, Shayne, pretty chalk here. Although I would say Corliss Waitman, it made a case to be that punt. Like he was maybe the best backup punter I've seen for the Steelers ever.
Like someone else had to come in and
where Johnston went down very early on and he comes right in and has a terrific season. But Johnston's the guy they paid the money to. He's got a huge cannon of a leg. I think they're going to go with him. Also, obviously, Chris Boswell, and I have Christian Kuntz, even though they did bring in another long snapper. I'm not betting that a long snapper is going to get replaced still.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not grinding the long snapper tape to know if they should do that or not.
Yeah.
So where I'll stop. I'll do a lot of stuff. I'll even watch kickers and punters sometimes. I'm not watching long snappers. That's where the cutoff is for me. No, but I have the same guys. I think Johnston wins this job because, again, he's getting paid the money. He is a overall better punter. Has been better than even what Waitman was last year. It wasn't that Waitman was phenomenal. He was just better than we've gotten despite him being the backup punter last year, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the big thing. And then Boz isn't going anywhere. We know that. They did bring in the Pitt kid as a kicker. I think he's pretty good. So I think he's going to end up getting a job maybe elsewhere and just kind of getting the chance to not have Boswell have to go out there in the preseason all the time for no reason. So maybe he gets a job from some other team, which would be cool. But other than that, there's no one really to kind of watch here.
Yeah, he's left-footed too, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he is.
And I just wonder why do that? Like if you're so used to a right-footed kick, wouldn't that seem like that would mess you up? Like
I don't know.
It's interesting.
But I think he'll be in camp. He'll do stuff. Maybe he'll get picked up by another team. Same thing with Waitman. I think he ultimately ends up somewhere else and probably competes for a job, or someone just hates their punter. They're just like, that the kid from Pitt was all right. Let me go grab him when he gets cut. Like something like that. I think probably so.
And the Steelers have been able to pull off a punter trade in the past before.
They have before.
I'm drawing a blank.
I can't remember.
He went to the Giants. I can picture the guy.
Oh man.
I'm not
gonna get it. Yeah.
But I think they swapped a late round pick for a punter. So maybe you never know if keeping Waitman around. Maybe he has a really good preseason. You can try to swap him for a late round pick or something.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. We go live on this show every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Also check out Josh Yorish's show. He goes live on Mondays at 1:30 p.m. We're going to be keeping you up to date with all the Steelers coverage during training camp. So make sure you check out stillcurtain.com and our podcast every week. Thank you for joining us on the show today. You can follow Shayne on X at Shayne Kubas. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Still Curtain podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on YouTube or ask Alexa to play the Still Curtain Steelers podcast. And thanks again for listening to the Still Curtain podcast.